This is episode 755 of the Rio Grande Foundation's Tipping Point, New Mexico. I'm Paul Gessing.
And I'm Wally Drangmeister.
I'm president of the Rio Grande Foundation, New Mexico's free market think tank. You can find out more about the foundation at riograndefoundation.org. Wally, a few housekeeping items to discuss before we dive into the show this week. First and foremost, especially right here in Albuquerque, but wherever you may live, if you have a election going on for mayor, for city council, etc., please do get out and vote. We're in the waning days of early voting, and I believe that will end on Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. And then election day will be on Tuesday. But have you voted yet, Wally?
I have voted. I went last Friday. They said they were busy. There were people in there, but there was no line. I walked in and, in and out of there in about 5.5, 6 minutes. I had done my homework and knew what I was going to vote for, but it was an orderly process.
Yes. I was on the west side of town and voted, and it took very short amount of time. There was not quite as much activity that had or was going on at that particular polling site. But regardless, wherever you live, if it's Albuquerque or another town throughout the state, please go vote. Also, we're getting down to brass tacks with the Laissez-Faire Soiree, the 25th anniversary of the Rio Grande Foundation on November 8th, the evening of November 8th at 6:30. Grover Norquist, our keynote speaker. You don't want to miss it. So if you can somehow get yourself to Albuquerque, that event is going to be well worth your time. So go to riograndefoundation.org, click on the gala tab, and you can meet both Wally and myself there at that event.
Yeah, and here Grover Norquist, he is, notwithstanding the fact that his topic is taxes, he's a great speaker. I definitely always enjoy hearing what he has to say, both at the, the macro level, the 50,000 foot level strategically with regard to taxes, and the latest from Washington.
And he has a underrated, dry sense of humor. I've even seen Grover do stand-up comedy once upon a time in Washington, D.C. It feels like an eternity ago. Perhaps that's because it was over 20 years ago, because I've creeping up on 20 years myself at the Rio Grande Foundation. I did not found the organization. The founder, in fact, Hal Stratton, will be in attendance, co-founder, I should say, but he was he's the only Republican Attorney General in really any of our lifetimes, and a lot of folks a lot older than us, Wally, but Hal Stratton helped co-found the Rio Grande Foundation, and look forward to catching up with him. But finally, Wally, you can be forgiven if you are dragging a little bit this morning. As we record this, it is the morning after, I don't know if it's the longest World Series game ever played, but 18 innings, boy.
Yeah, 2 games for the price of 1. And Paul, I really enjoyed it. I love baseball, and that had when you're in extra innings, there's something even that ratchets it up more in terms of the tension and intensity, and the fact that how well the pitching staffs, the bullpens from both those clubs did for a long, long time. And I was not going to give up. You know what I mean?
I gave up after 14 innings. That was all I could handle. And boy, folks up in Toronto, I assume they're Eastern time zone folks up there. I mean, they must have been up to
3 a.m. or what?
All hours of the morning there. Yep. So, just it was a great baseball game. Very entertaining. I used to be a diehard baseball fan. And don't watch as much as I used to, but that was a heck of an evening. And of course, our prayers go out to folks affected by Hurricane Melissa throughout the Caribbean, especially the island of Jamaica. Just quite a tragedy unfolding, a very intense hurricane. We've been very blessed this year in the United States. No mainland hurricanes of significance, but that one definitely doing some damage in the Caribbean. So our thoughts and prayers to folks in the Caribbean and especially on the island of Jamaica. But now we are going to get started with a challenging article in many ways because, healthcare and health insurance have long since not been oriented towards the free market. And we could sit here and come up with a hierarchy of how free market oriented or not our various forms of healthcare are. I would go with health savings accounts as being the absolutely most free market model of healthcare. It's a way that still is heavily regulated, but it empowers patients to set up these savings accounts and use those funds to pay for a lot of their day-to-day healthcare costs while having a more catastrophic oriented health insurance plan tied to it. It's not perfect, but it is better than most. And then you've got your traditional employer-sponsored health insurance, which, because it is private sector, it is better certainly than government programs in the sense that it's not a burden directly on the government one way or the other. But a report from KRQE notes that the average cost of a family insurance plan sponsored by their employer is now $27,000. That is a lot of money. Family premiums, the article says, are up 6% or $1,408 from last year, more than double the rate of inflation and similar to the 7% increase recorded in each of the previous 2 years. On average, workers contributed $6,850 annually to the cost of family coverage, with employers paying the rest. So if you're wondering why you may not get a raise from your employer, it could be possibly, not saying it absolutely is, but it could be because you are seeing that raise eaten up in the form of health insurance and the costs that are being borne by your employer. But one of the things that we've railed at against at here on the Rio Grande Foundation is the third-party payment system model of healthcare that rose after World War II. I discussed this in some detail with Fred Nathan at the New Mexico Suncast podcasts that are available on YouTube. But the idea that the employer should be the one picking and choosing your health care plan and getting the tax deductible aspect of that, it remains, I say, the original sin of American healthcare. Growth in healthcare programs like Medicare and Medicaid shift costs from the government by underpaying, reimbursing doctors to other traditional private sector providers. Regulations, including those imposed by the ACA, Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. The ACA, I like to say, didn't kill American healthcare. It just hastened its demise through its regulations and costs that it imposed. Medical malpractice, of course, professional licensing laws, and of the aging population. Not exactly a policy issue per se, but definitely a critical issue. The only way to solve this problem is to restore the doctor-patient relationship, not just in the medical room, but also financially. And one of my favorite economic maxims or laws is Stein's Law. That's Herb, not Ben. Ben, of course, is famous for his role in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. If you haven't seen that one, well, shame on you. But Herb is the dad. He said, something that cannot go on forever will stop. And not exactly groundbreaking in its economic impact, but you have to apply that to American healthcare and healthcare across the globe, because going to the single payer model Canada or Britain have done, you go and read articles about their healthcare systems and the delays and the lack of technology and denial of service, etc. Equally significant problems. So the way forward needs to be through the free market, but we're a ways away from that, Wally.
We are a long way away from it, and it's definitely getting worse across the country. In New Mexico, it's getting worse quicker because have even more things that we're doing to damage the healthcare system and make costs go up. So, Paul, as I was thinking about this, what is it we want out of our healthcare system? Let me be doctor consultant for a minute. We want efficiency and effectiveness. We want it to be efficient, meaning we want it to be responsive. We want it to be the cost to be, the lowest they possibly can be for effectiveness, which is good, high quality healthcare. Well, throw the government into that, and first of all, they define efficiency and effectiveness way different than the patient does. You say, well, we need, when they talk about we need more efficiency in our healthcare, a lot of times in government plans, whether it's Canada, Great Britain, and now increasingly the United States, it's like, well, we can't spend that much. Not how is it being delivered, and is that done from an effectiveness? Just we need a lower cost, and believe me, you can lower the cost. So what are we going to do with this? We had a really bastardized healthcare system before Obamacare, and Obamacare did not make it any better. It made it a lot worse. And so we have this system that has just huge political and bureaucratic overlays. Mm-hmm. And, we've added required costs, you one size fits all, and believe me, that is the federal government way of doing things. And these things about sending price signals and letting people have responsibility in that doctor-patient relationship, as you said, has gone out the window. And so there's two ways we can go. We can double down and say, okay, we're going to go to single payer, and then we're going to be like Canada and Great Britain, where we're going to have, you think you're waiting a long time to see a doctor now, wait until that goes. Or we can put market-based reforms in there. And who's talking about this, Paul? Almost nobody in Washington. There's dribs and drabs, but this doesn't seem to be a very high priority. So I don't know. At this point, it looks to me like, will something have to be done? Yeah, but I think it's... as they say, it's going to have to get a lot worse before there's even attention on getting a lot better, except if we do that thing where it's just like, okay, we're going to spend less and more people are going to die, and have a good day.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation. And what I'm trying to get across here is that American healthcare, on top of New Mexico's failing system, which of course we're seeing medical provider shortage, et cetera. This is government at all levels. It's like the whole phrase about turtles all the way down. You just unlock one aspect of American healthcare, and you find that government's tied up and integral to all of the problems that we face. And replacing that with a single payer system, I'm sure sounds great to certain folks out there, but it has its own serious problems.
And Paul, I wouldn't at this point, things are so bad, I wouldn't argue. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that the single payer aspect, which is really the antithesis of kind of free market, would be any worse than what we have now. But boy, if you just centralize, what you're doing then is just centralizing power to avoid ever having any kind of market or efficiency-based reforms built into the system. It's all done by people who know better, the people in Washington.
Well, if I were to recommend something, again, so many of these are so politically difficult. I mean, you couldn't even do just modest modifications to Obamacare under the first Trump administration. John McCain and others decided that wasn't the way we needed to go. But we should do what I believe it was Oliver Wendell Holmes, the Supreme Court justice, said: allow the laboratory of the states to take over. And rather than the federal government going into more and more debt, printing more and more money, imposing more regulations across the board from Washington, D.C., we should allow individual states to experiment and pay for their own healthcare solutions. And we could solve so many problems in this country if we allowed California, if they want to go full Bernie Sanders, left-wing, government-run healthcare, by all means, go for it. Unfortunately, New Mexico would probably fall into that boat. We'd probably spend all of our oil and gas surplus doing something along those lines. But the reality is that you can easily move from place to place within the country. And as long as you're paying for it at the state level, you can't just print up all the money. And then other states, Texas or Arizona, or name others, Florida, would probably implement some kind of HSA-based free market reform. Where things went wrong is when we started enacting these one-size-fits-all taxpayer or debt paid for federal programs that mask the real cost through shifting it both across the country as well as to future generations. And that's what we need to address. So go ahead.
And there's precedent for this. There's a lot of times the federal government does block grants because they know they don't have the answer. Well, in this case, everyone knows they don't have the answer, but this one size fits all is like they build these gigantic programs and machines that are not tested, and because they're implemented and forced for all 50 states, as you say, there's no way to use the laboratory of individual states trying different approaches. The marketplace of ideas and different approaches, not too popular right now.
Yeah. Real quickly, I believe it was Sunday's Albuquerque Journal. Yes, the 25th. Our friends and recent guest on the show, Dr. Jason Lucas from Farmington, he had an article in the Albuquerque Journal entitled, "Who Carries the Legacy of Medical Malpractice, Crisis, and Physician Departure in New Mexico?" So if you hopefully listen to that episode, you can further find out what Dr. Lucas has to say.
Is this Final Jeopardy? I have an answer.
Yeah, I think I know what he's going to say, but you should read it anyway.
Yeah, no, it's okay. So, yes, we know that the trial attorneys, boy, we love being able to get more settlements. Not enough to disincentivize bad behavior and provide funds, but enough to make them rich. One or two cases in.
Yeah. On a somewhat different note, our governor's ever so subtle switch or move to the center politically is in full swing. Recently, and I'm interested in your take on what she's doing here. Not so much politically, because we can see that now she's 7 3/4 years into, 6 3/4, I should say, into being governor. And she's really never talked favorably in any way, shape, or form about oil and gas directly. She's expressed some level of gratitude for the money that she's then able to spend, but she's never touted oil, gas as solutions to anything. Well, that changed recently when the governor joined with Wyoming's governor and made what amounts to an announcement, although I don't really know, it's kind of like the old Wendy's commercials, where's the beef? But she did make an announcement talking about how there is a, quote, actionable roadmap, which if there ever was a more vague term, I don't know what it is. But she's talking about exporting natural gas to Japan. Now, just for the record, the Rio Grande Foundation's been talking about this for 12 years. I looked up our first article with the letters LNG in it, and let's just say that we've been, at this for a while because we see the potential benefit for New Mexico from exporting this product, natural gas compressed and cooled, that can be used by countries like Japan that don't have tremendous amounts of natural resources. Now, there wasn't a lot of specifics there or a true actionable roadmap, let's call it, because ultimately what we're talking about is pipelines.
Yeah. Yes.
And the governor, to my knowledge, has not lifted a finger through her term so far to talk about pipelines, to push either the Biden or, I mean, I'm sure Trump would be much more supportive, pipelines to the West Coast in order to move this liquefied natural gas, presumably coming out of states like Wyoming and New Mexico, out into the Pacific and ultimately to Japan, China, etc.
Or into the Gulf of California is the other place, because you can bypass California.
Well, that's the thing, is that ultimately you're going to need Mexico on board with this. Now, Biden probably wasn't super enthusiastic about this for the same reasons as MLG hasn't talked about it a lot, because he doesn't care for these energy sources. Trump, not exactly on the same page as the president of Mexico, but you never know. These things have a funny way of working them out when there's positive, win-win kinds of scenarios. They may not be on the same page, but they could also work together on this. The point being that I applaud the governor genuinely for talking about this issue and expressing actual support for New Mexico and American energy. But as of right now, it's still kind of much ado about nothing. Unless you have a different thought, Wally. What's your take?
Well, no, I do think the thought is, Paul, is back when I worked for the Mexico Oil and Gas Association, they were working on this project back then. So it's not like this is a new idea. Japan, as you say, they don't have their own resources. And then the Fukushima nuclear power plant put a big dent in. And, they're in a position, let's put it this way. The last time Japan was energy starved, it wasn't a real good outcome for all concerned in terms of what happened. And so, yeah, the Japanese have been coming to New Mexico now for, 20, 30 years, trying to figure out whether there's an approach to get, energy from here to there and, have it be a stable, reliable source from a country or countries they can trust. So, yeah, it's something that I'm sure they'll continue to want to do it. And, are we moderating? Yeah, I guess we're moderating because we're going to pretend that all of the things that were just idiotic and weren't going to work, that are slowly fading away, like, an NGV in every garage and carport within a few years.
NGV, are you referring to?
EV, electric vehicles. Excuse me, yeah.
That's okay.
NGV was natural gas vehicles. That was an earlier time that didn't work. So there's a lot going on here. I think this would be
They are a thing, though. Natural gas vehicles.
Oh
are
yeah,
a thing.
they're absolutely a thing, and electric vehicles are a thing, and
Yeah.
they will be a thing for a long time to come. But they're not necessarily the thing that they were promised in terms of the rapidity of the switchover. And the same with energy. Everyone says it is interesting, the kind of stock criticism of any project as well. Wind and solar is so good now. Why doesn't everyone use wind and solar? Well, if it was so good, everyone would use it. They certainly use it everywhere they can, because the road to using wind and solar, between political expediency, getting permits and whatever, is very quick, but not necessarily ready for prime time, meaning the primary energy source to run a country on.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And this reality is apparently front and center for the governor. I did a talk to a group over the weekend, and I jokingly, but maybe more than jokingly, referred to the governor a little bit like Ebenezer Scrooge. She's in bed, asleep on, I guess, Christmas Eve there, and she's being visited by certain ghosts. And I'm specifically thinking about the ghost of Christmas future.
Yeah,
and,
the ghost of politics future.
yes, and she is scrambling right now to do things that will reflect well on her from a legacy perspective, that she is leaving New Mexico in a stronger position than when she became governor. And I think at this point, we are obviously a year and 2 months away from her leaving office. It is hard to point to ways that she has made New Mexico stronger or better off than it was before. And that's not exactly a high bar. We have a lot of challenges in this state, but nothing really has gotten significantly better under this governor. Yes, she's got the oil and gas revenue and money in the bank, but day to day, that's not much for average people in New Mexico. And another way that she has kind of suddenly embraced reality and economic development is through Project Jupiter, which is a Oracle, the company, data center down in Santa Teresa in southern New Mexico. And I think we've talked about this a little bit, but I've been doing a little more digging on this thing. So this is going to transform southern New Mexico first and foremost. This is going to be a lot of jobs and a lot of economic development. And it is going to be fueled through a natural gas plant that is part of a microgrid that serves only this Project Jupiter to keep the power flowing to a data center that cannot lose power. Now, Wally, I think I may have sent you this, but you may not be aware of this particular factoid. So if you look at El Paso Electric's service area, and I did that for the first time, really, because they're not P&M, they're down in Las Cruces, El Paso, and serving that environment area down there. I don't know if you have a population figure for what El Paso Electric serves, but it's all of Las Cruces, all of El Paso, and other places around there. They consume or produce 2.8 gigawatts in that El Paso Electric service area there. This facility alone, Project Jupiter, the data center, is going to consume 1 gigawatt. So you're essentially talking about enough electricity for a major city. And a bill passed HB 95 last session, so this year. It passed that set up microgrids, which are off the grid. We will not benefit one way or the other from this natural gas plant. It will simply sit there. It will be a significant plant because of the size and the amount of electricity needed, but it will fuel this data center and nothing more. And obviously the governor wanted this. We're subsidizing this through some very generous economic development incentives, IRBs and the like. The governor pushed hard for this. And it's clear that she seems to be realizing, you can't do that kind of project with wind, solar, and batteries. It'll simply be unrealistic, covering large swaths of our state in solar panels or wind turbines, and you still need the batteries to boot. So just use this law that you snuck in there on people during the session, for better or for worse, and voila, you got a microgrid just for this particular plant, but using traditional sources of energy.
Yeah, and Paul, I just want to. The term microgrid is the term of art. I think it's very misleading term. I like something like a localized industrial grid, and the micro part is, it's
nothing micro about it.
Nothing micro about it. That's the point. But the point is it's not necessarily reliant in any way on the utility grid, which is the
Correct.
macro grid in this situation. So, yeah, here's the thing. Technology uses a lot of energy. Guess what? It does now. Use energy every time. It's interesting when we have these phones, and while we're using our phones or our iPads, our laptops, we do Google searches, and we don't think that we think that all the power is right here in our hand. Well, the power is really in the network of servers that are all over our country and all over the world, and that's where a lot of energy is consumed. And with large language models and the next generation of those and beyond, there's even more need for, a lot of data processing. So yeah, that factoid is pretty crazy. El Paso greater area is just under 1 million. So it's crazy how big that is. But also to the point where those will just use wind and solar and batteries. It's not going to work, and it might work someday. I'm serious, but at the pace we're on and the level of the technology, it's not going to work in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And so what's New Mexico going to do? Well, we have our Energy Transition Act, which would have made this all but impossible for the utilities to put it in. So they're like, well, if we're going to have any economic development regarding additional electricity, we're going to have to provide a way to do that. And this quote unquote microgrid approach is a good one. Because think about it right now, New Mexico is a big producer of energy by definition. We don't need all the oil and natural gas we produce. It goes elsewhere. But so we're an energy producer in addition to wind and solar and building like the SunZia line to take the energy that's produced here. But we're not as big of an energy consumer. And with energy consumption comes another layer of economic activity and jobs. And this is a way to, instead of just having the natural gas flow from the wells in New Mexico and go right out the state lines to other states, we can have, make energy out of it, have data centers, do other things. So, yeah, is it a good thing? I think it's absolutely a fantastic thing. But again, it's back to that point about, the Energy Transition Act. We'll see. It's one of those utilities. The utilities are managing to comply, and we certainly use a lot of renewable energy from time to time. But we also are using still a ton of natural gas, the nuclear while we still have them, and that is not going to change in major ways for the foreseeable future. So is it going to happen here? Or is it going to happen elsewhere? And the screams are starting to build from the environmental groups. And, the key is that they just, these issues are political, yes. But there's engineering and economics underlying them. And when you look at the economics underlying that, do you think Oregon would want to build a natural gas plant if they really thought there was an easy way to do wind and solar and battery?
Well, more importantly, by 2035, so 10 short years from now, let alone when this thing comes online and is actually producing energy and making money.
If this doesn't change.
What do you mean?
The 2035 date. Yeah. The 2035 where it has to come in compliance with the Energy Transition Act.
Right.
May be a lot like the electric vehicle mandate is my point. So.
Well, no, you
yeah, as it's on the books
you're
right now.
Ahead of me, yes.
Okay, sorry about that.
2035, theoretically, this plant will need to go away. And this is
or have carbon capture, or we'll change the rules, or who knows what.
Well, we know that the rules will probably be the ones to change because we know that's the governor's strategy. She is going to take the credit. She is going to do the thing that she wants to do. And then some future governor will either have to comply with the law and really make there has to be a thought process going on at a company. I mean, this thing's going to cost $1 billion or more. This facility, they're not just going to leave a dead facility in the ground. They're not going to be able to get wind and solar. Maybe they could get a modular nuke, but that's not going to even be compliant necessarily with the energy transition.
Well, and of all the places you could put a small modular reactor, New Mexico would seem to be pretty far down the list from, again, the political point of view.
Right,
maybe
right.
not. Maybe not. Maybe not.
So there's got to be a path forward here, and the governor is kind of catching on to reality a little bit, and that is a good thing. It's just frustrating that the media are allowing the fiction to continue, but here at Tipping Point, New Mexico, we get below the headlines or their lack of headlines and actually analyze the situation. And this is a fascinating one that I wanted to bring to bear. So
yeah, and then just one final thing. I bring this topic up, but this is just another example of it. There's this, I call it aspirational environmental rules or laws. It's like this is what we want to have happen. Right now we have no idea if it can happen, but we're going to put it on the books, and then if it can't happen, then we'll back away from it, because having this on the books right now will make industry do everything they can to properly comply. That is part and parcel of environmental policy that turns into economic policy that the Dems have done going back to basically the Obama administration. They did that. And so, yeah, that's along the point. Will things change? You can almost rest assured that they are, because when these laws are put into place, they have no idea how they're going to do it. You know, the more conservative approach to things, and I don't even mean Republican necessarily, would be to put regulations in play that's based on known technology with some incentives to move to other technologies. But that's not how we do it in this country right now.
all right, bad news from the courts up in Santa Fe. Folks in Santa Fe were saved by a district judge here in New Mexico when, unfortunately, a millionaire's tax on homes in Santa Fe was imposed in 2023, a 3% new tax on the sale of those homes. It was rejected by the district court, and just this week, a appeals court has overturned that and said, sure, this tax can go forward. Will this go to the Supreme Court of New Mexico? Would it matter if it does? Because they, of course, are liberal and likely to ratify any tax proposed anywhere. I think this is an open question. So is this a done deal or not? We don't know yet, but this is not going to solve any problems in Santa Fe. In fact, I don't talk positively about politics in Santa Fe very often, but Santa Fe has done a fair amount of apartment building and gotten into approving and expanding the housing opportunities available in that city. If you look south of town, if you're going up I-25, Cerrillos Road, etc., there's been a fair amount of construction. I'm not going to say that the permitting process is easy or that all of the rules and regulations are not a problem, but it does seem like Santa Fe has gotten serious about addressing some of the housing challenges that they face. But this millionaire's tax, this attempt to use that money to fund so-called affordable housing, it's unworkable. It's more political posturing. $1 million in a house is not that expensive in Santa Fe. It's going to increasingly impact middle and upper middle class people, and it's going to have real negative impacts on that city.
But that's not what we intend, Paul.
I know. Not what they intend.
That's not what they intended. So we're gonna have to wait and suffer through it. So yeah, it'll be interesting how that may play out in the courts, and
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we will see for sure.
So the Albuquerque Journal had a bit of an update on Maxeon Solar. We, of course, for 2 years, we've seen since the governor announced that another significant so-called investment in New Mexico, in Albuquerque, by a solar panel manufacturing company from, I believe, Singapore originally. They haven't done a whole lot, and so we have attempted to make sure that we're on top of things and reporting on what is happening, or more importantly, not happening with Maxeon, because it has been more than 2 years, 2 years and a couple months now, and they haven't even, to my knowledge, signed a lease or done anything significant with the backup building, the much smaller building than their original plans at Mesa del Sol to build $1 billion facility there. The Journal story really did not say anything new. It was simply, we're just kind of waiting and seeing what happens. I think the biggest upshot from the Journal story, if you read it, and I link to all this as I do most articles that we talk about at heirsofenchantment.com, is that a reporter seems to attempt to blame President Trump for Maxeon's woes, because, of course, Trump is not nearly as pro solar panel and solar panel subsidy as the previous administration. But it is worth noting that the accusations and the federal government, the U.S. federal government's concerns about Maxeon and their slave labor allegations in China, the Uyghurs, etc., that was brought up and applied under the Biden administration, not the Trump administration. That's a fact that's kind of muddied in the Albuquerque Journal piece. But the reality is that Maxeon has some real significant issues with their business model. Their stock has been very, very stagnant and down. And of course, they had a reverse stock split a while ago. And then the other thing is what is going on with Ebon Solar. That was a year after Maxeon, another $1 billion solar panel manufacturing company that the governor touted as coming to Mesa del Sol. And that one is equally questionable in terms of what's going on. No reporting has been done on that. We're just waiting to see if they will move forward at any time or not. So far, nothing has happened. So, yes, the governor's also, and kind of connecting this back to the Project Jupiter story, the governor seems to be taking note and realizing that maybe her pipe dream, renewable energy-based New Mexico economic development plan is not the way forward, and that you actually have to do something that's a little more looped into reality, whether it's a data center or even this fusion facility, which I'm very skeptical of, but we'll be watching that one to see if that Pacific Fusion moves forward. I mean, I'm confident they can spend the money. I guess some people have invested in it. Will we ever have usable fusion technology developed right here in Albuquerque? I'm skeptical, but it's got a better chance of success than these solar panel manufacturers, which remain very much unrealized in doing anything here in New Mexico.
Yes, Paul. Well, the Project Jupiter, a data center in southern New Mexico, that's the first project that's using existing proven technology that we've
there you go.
That no one's saying, oh, you can't build a gas-fired power plant in a data center. It will never work. A lot of these other things, again, maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, but there is certainly a higher degree of speculative risk just with regard to the technologies.
Yeah. Finally, a judge, unfortunately, has ruled against us in our court fight over the city of Albuquerque's donation of $250,000 of our tax money to Planned Parenthood. They somehow found that it was not a violation of the anti-donation clause. Denise Barella Shepard, Judge Denise Barella Shepard was the judge, unfortunately, and don't know if there's a path forward for us in terms of an appeal. But boy, when the law is written as prohibiting donations and the politicians on Albuquerque City Council say, this is a donation, we're just supporting Planned Parenthood because we really like them and their work, and those are basically quotes from the meetings of City Council that happened that got this $250,000 donation. It's pretty frustrating to see the judiciary not side with the plain text of the law that you are in litigation over. So that's just the way things go sometimes with New Mexico's judiciary. It's not by any stretch the only area of our government that we need to elect better people, but it certainly impacts the rule of law as well as, of course, criminal justice and the crime challenges that our city and our state face. But any thoughts on that before we conclude, Wally?
Well, just the approach to the Constitution of the state of New Mexico is, what shall we say, a little lackadaisical. You know, it says that, but it doesn't really mean it.
You got it. All right, folks. Well, we are going to leave things right there. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Find all episodes at tippingpointsnm.com or at the Rio Grande Foundation's YouTube channel. Subscribe to the show at Apple, Stitcher, or tell Google Home to play Tipping Point New Mexico. Thanks to Path 3 Marketing for producing this show.